On the afternoon of July 15, 2019, the skies over northern India roared with fury. The capital, New Delhi, was being battered by a violent storm. Amid thick black clouds and lightning, a commercial airliner circled above the city. On board, 161 people depended on a single decision: to land or to divert. This was Vistara Flight 944, and it was running out of fuel. What had begun as a routine 2-hour journey from Mumbai to Delhi was about to turn into an airborne nightmare. Visibility was zero, the runway was flooded, air traffic was overwhelmed, and every second in the air burned through the last remaining kilos of fuel. Passengers had no idea how close they were to disaster. The pilots, constrained by decisions made hours earlier on the ground, were left with too little fuel and too few options. This wasn't an air crash, but it could have been. It's a case that reveals how economic pressures, operational stress, and seemingly small decisions can line up into a near-fatal chain of errors. This is the story of Vistara Flight 944, the day an Airbus A320 flew to the edge of disaster and came back by a miracle. July 15, 2019. Chhatrapati Shivaji International Airport, Mumbai. It's 3:10 in the afternoon. Vistara Flight 944 is preparing for takeoff, bound for the capital, New Delhi. On board, 155 passengers and 6 crew members. In command, a 30-year-old captain with over 8,000 flight hours on the Airbus A320. Beside him, a young first officer with just 1,600 total flight hours. The aircraft is nearly brand new, an Airbus A320 delivered in 2018. LEAP 1A engines, quiet, efficient, powerful. The flight is routine. Mumbai to Delhi, 2 hours in the air, a route flown hundreds of times each day. But today, nothing will be routine. It's monsoon season. The skies are heavy, storms are on the radar, and on the ground, the decisions being made will shape the fate of everyone on board. Fuel is calculated with surgical precision. Every kilo counts. More fuel means more weight means more burn, less profit. The flight plan includes fuel for Delhi, plus reserves for 2 alternate airports, Ahmedabad and Lucknow. But carrying enough for Ahmedabad would mean loading an extra 3,800 kilos. And that, quite simply, isn't profitable. The pilots make a decision. They reassign the additional internal fuel as if it's for Ahmedabad. An administrative move, legal on paper, but risky in reality. In their system, they list Lucknow as the actual alternate. And as a secondary alternate, they choose Jaipur. Jaipur has a runway, but no Vistara support. Everything is ready. 8,500 kilos of fuel on board. Engines running. Vistara 944 begins taxiing toward the runway, but what they don't know is that Delhi is about to vanish beneath an impenetrable storm, and the fuel they're carrying won't be enough. 4:20 p.m., Vistara 944 reaches the outskirts of New Delhi. But what they see on the radar isn't a landing approach. It's a wall. Black clouds, heavy rain, thunderstorms, visibility below 500 meters. And they're not alone. Dozens of aircraft are waiting their turn to land. Air traffic control gives instructions. Join the holding pattern. Holding pattern. Flying in circles, waiting, burning fuel, watching both the clock and the fuel gauge drop. Together, each turn costs them 300 kilos of fuel, and their safety margin is quietly melting away. Ahmedabad, their legal alternate, is no longer an option. It's too far. Only Lucknow remains. But reaching it would require the exact legal minimum fuel. Any mistake, and there will be no second chance. Still, they decide to try. The aircraft begins final approach to Delhi, but the weather won't let up. Rain pounding the runway, crosswinds, and as they descend to just 100 feet above the ground, the aircraft jolts violently. The captain makes the call. Go around. They throttle up, climb, pull away, and with that, Delhi is off the table. There's no fuel left for another attempt. Only one option remains, Lucknow, but the weather there isn't much better. and more problems are on the way. Male 5:05 Vistara 944 exits Delhi airspace. Just over half an hour of usable fuel remains. The situation is critical. ATC offers an unexpected option. Jaipur, clear weather, open runway, a chance to land safely. But there's a catch. Vistara doesn't operate in Jaipur. No ground staff, no spare parts, no support on the ground. For the airline, Jaipur is a logistical void, and for that reason, the pilots decline. They choose to continue to Lucknow, an airport with regular Vistara operations. Even though the weather isn't favorable, there's a storm. Visibility, 475 meters, below minimums for landing, but there's no turning back now. To save every last drop of fuel, they take a direct route. But that path crosses military airspace. They must request clearance. They wait. And meanwhile, the fuel keeps dropping. Finally, they're given the green light. They head for Lucknow. They arrive with just enough for one attempt. Only one. The aircraft descends. The runway lights are out there. Somewhere. But the rain hides everything. 300 feet. Nothing. The runway doesn't appear. Male 5:30. Vistara 944 is still in the air, but not for much longer. After the second go-around, the system issues a warning. Fuel emergency. Only 800 kilos remaining. Estimated endurance, less than 15 minutes. There are no options left. The captain makes it official. Mayday, mayday, mayday. Air traffic control offers one last alternative. Prayagraj, active airport. Runway available. Good weather. But there's a new problem. They don't have the navigation charts. Without them, they don't know the airport layout. They don't know its elevation. They don't know the runway orientation. In the middle of an emergency, flying blind isn't an option. Only one alternative remains: return to Lucknow and try again. The weather has improved. Visibility has increased to 1,000 meters, just enough to attempt a safe landing. The captain doesn't hesitate. He gives the order. Final approach. In the distance, the runway lights finally appear. The crosswind is still strong. 25 knots across the fuselage. Rain slams the body of the aircraft. Turbulence. But there's no choice. 300 feet. Touchdown. The landing gear slams into the runway. Thrust reversers deploy. The aircraft stabilizes. And finally, Vistara 944 has landed, safely, but only just. As they reach the gate, the indicators show the unthinkable. 260 kilos of fuel. Roughly 4 minutes of flight time. Not a second more. They had flown to the edge of the possible and come back by a miracle. And so, Vistara 944 landed. The aircraft sustained no damage. But behind that seemingly happy ending lay a deeply serious case. An investigation was launched by India's Directorate General of Civil Aviation, and what they found was alarming. The additional fuel for Ahmedabad wasn't genuine. The second alternate, Jaipur, had no operational support. Safer airports were rejected due to logistical reasons. The flight was operated at the bare minimum legal fuel requirements. The report was clear. The aircraft was at imminent risk of an accident, just 260 kilos away from running out of fuel. The conclusion: decisions made on the ground had compromised the safety of the flight. The airline was forced to revise its procedures. New controls on fuel planning, greater mandatory reserves for diversions, additional training for critical decision-making. The pilots were not penalized. They had followed the rules, but the rules in this case weren't enough. In aviation, everything is measured in margins. Time, altitude, speed, fuel. When any of those margins disappear, risk escalates. Vistara 944 was not an accident, but it was a wake-up call. A silent warning of how a system that prioritizes efficiency over safety can bring us dangerously close to the edge. Because sometimes the only thing separating a safe landing from a tragedy is 4 minutes. The second missed approach of the day. Now, fuel enters the critical zone. The captain picks up the mic. 2 words no pilot ever wants to say: Mayday, Mayday. The emergency is now official. Only minutes left in the air, and no clear destination in sight.